Good morning. Happy Monday. Okay, so we left last week with this big bearish candle that had gapped up, and it looked like Friday morning, if it could hold, okay, there's always an if, we were off to the races to new all-time highs. It didn't work out that way. After chopping around for a little while, things went down, and well, they just chopped and then continued to go down, and there was this news of British tankers being taken over, and I guess that jittered the markets going into the weekend. You never know what happens, and risk growing at that point is to the unknown, and traders left. So now we've got this big bearish candle here. So news aside, as technical traders, we all listen to the news, but going back to the charts and saying, what does this pattern now suggest? And so the thing that it gapped up wasn't a big deal. It's the fact that it retraced all the way down to almost to the low of this reversal candle. So spiders were in an uptrend, higher highs, higher lows, pulling back into the unfilled gap area. 20 MA, gap down, green bar, right? Get long, look for new highs. Well, it gapped up and started that way, and it didn't work out, and down it went. So now we've got Thursday's low as a short-term, pretty important line in the sand, especially since prices are gapping up now. So the gap up, where is it relative to the big red candle? Has it totally negated it? That's our step-by-step process of being objective. And so if it was to gap up more than 50% into the red bar, we'd say, well, pretty good start to negating that red bar. Let's see where it goes from there. So at the moment, we're at 297.60. Not so impressive. Down in the bottom part of the red bar. And here's the red bar, right? Well, the big white, momentum move in a smaller time frame is a red candle, or vice versa. Big green candle is a momentum move to the upside in a smaller time frame, which creates a price void. So now prices have to, or traders have to decide, okay, are earnings so great? Something coming out. We got Amazon coming out, I think, Thursday. And other companies, of course, a lot of earnings this week. Can it negate this bar? So today, as always, the prior day's high and low is our first reference points of support and resistance. And then with a big red bar like this, can it get at least halfway? If it can't get halfway into that red bar, well, stay with a bearish bias, because whatever demand there is here at the open, it isn't so great. So if it chops around and, basically sit on your hands as far as this pattern goes until we get a decisive move one way or the other. And the beginnings of that decisive move would be a break below Friday's low, or a deep retracement up into Friday's high. So we're kind of in wait and see mode here to see, can this take the direction one way or another? And the expectation here, if it is to break lower with a situation like this, is a measured move to the downside. I'm just kind of eyeballing that, but you kind of put it, give or take around here. So we'll see. And then we've got the major support. Now, this is our major support line right at the moment. So it's the low, the swing low prior to the higher high. So if prices were to break and close below that, if this is no longer in an uptrend, just drawing a line to the upside there, it's not a trend line. So breaking below major support breaks the trend every time, black and white. So we're waiting to see, is this, just a scare on Friday where the markets will now digest this and chop sideways for a little while here and then resume the trend. So, because so far, right, black and white, the trend is still up unless it breaks below here. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens here. Gap up, not so impressive. We'll see what it could do. Weekly chart, as you know, made all new all-time highs. We've got this red bar, big red bar that was completely ignored. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Like here is a big red bar suggesting this was going to go down, and it didn't. And prices retraced 90%. So the bearish view here gets negated, and now we've got a bullish view within this time frame. That's actually a monthly. Even more impressive being a monthly. We look at the weekly. So we got that big retracement, and now we've got a red bar on the weekly, which, right, higher high, higher low. If it was to retrace here, no big deal. We're looking to buy the pullback on the weekly, which is that pullback would negate the uptrend on the daily. And then we're into, just monitoring when the daily lines up with the weekly to go long, even though this has violated the trend. And that by itself suggests that the move up will be a bit erratic or choppy as we chew through the supply. If that's going to happen, of course. But that would be our bias, is that weekly time frame with a reversal, of course. Like we get a buy setup, says it's going to go up, and now it's got to deal with the uncertainty here. And we just see how it all unfolds. That's what this is about, multiple time frame alignment. And then putting your bias in alignment objectively with what's going on, to say, hey, we've got, this isn't a sideways trend. It's not in a downtrend yet. This isn't an uptrend and it's a buy. This has got to get itself turned around. It's going to take a little time and chop. So don't put your stop too close because you'll get tagged more likely. So you got to give things a little bit more room. And scenarios like this is, put your toe in the water, give it room, wait for a secondary setup, add to positions, and wait for this to come back in alignment, the daily, back in alignment with the weekly and the monthly, which we looked at. And that's the factory work. Let's continue. Okay. Greg, is that me only, or do you see Head and Shoulders building on 60-minute ES? Let's take a look. Well, I guess there was one here. So maybe we can compress that more, but here's the thing. Here was the Head and Shoulders. Let's expand this. Let's make it clearer. All right, so here was the distribution Head and Shoulders. And I talked about this in the video in the letter this weekend when we were referring to the transports and the Russell and the Head and Shoulders pattern. So, here we have more of a textbook type of Head and Shoulders pattern right here. All right. Kind of, sometimes they get a little complicated, if you will, not so textbook. Anyway, between the two heads, the swing lows tend to be relatively close and draw the neckline. And we'll take a look at the transports and the Russell, but this low here was rather deep. And the reason when you ask me about this, and I'm thinking maybe you're looking at this as being the big Head and Shoulders, which it certainly could be, but it's not the textbook kind, which is, let's just clear this up. It's not your textbook scenario like that because it had this deep retracement. But clearly it's violated the trend on the 60. It came down to next support here. You had your rally. And probably if I expand this kind of looks like a Head and Shoulders, if you can kind of go with that and use a little bit of imagination, I suppose. But if I expand it, it becomes a little clearer, right? Shoulder, head, and shoulder, and down that went. And so now you've got that little retracement here, no biggie. And theoretically, just, looking at Friday, what happened, we come back to the same conclusion that I said, looking at the spiders, is that, hey, if this can't retrace very far, as I'm looking at this more thoughts as, I love the discussions, because when you ask questions, it makes me think, well, is it possible? And maybe you're starting to see this as I'm talking here, as to the possibility of this eventually, maybe it takes a couple of days, becoming a head and shoulders. And, we've got this low here and maybe this, and that is, what plays out. So as we see these situations, and, just looking at what's going on right here, you've got red bar, green bar, red bar. This one, so far it's in the lower half of the red bar. So we've got this uncertainty and confusion going on here. It's not so clear what to do here today just yet. So nothing wrong with that. Markets don't always set up where it's like, wow, this is a no-brainer, like that. Strong move up, bottoming tail takes out the lows. That's a no-brainer after strong move. Whereas, this is in an uptrend and we got a red bar in an uptrend, which suggests pullback, but it could chop sideways. So we spend the rest of this week, especially with earnings coming out, excuse me, nobody wants to get ahead of Amazon. Maybe they blow out and the market rallies and what have you. And, we've got the Wednesday scenario, which should be quite entertaining. Get your favorite beverage and popcorn and watch, them interview Mr. Mueller with their ridiculous questions at this point. So maybe we spend the week chopping around, and I don't know, maybe this, eventually forms this head and shoulders top here, and then we have a correction, So right now, market-wise, it's sit on your hands or find out what's moving down here, right? Something here that's moving, that's an opportunity, and we'll, just digest this as we do every day. What time is it? Okay, got time here. So we've got the same scenario here in the NASDAQ futures, minor retracement up. You see, here's the void. So this kind of situation, the first reversal can be tricky. M top here should be a good short, and then we see if it follows through to the downside. But as I said, if this continues to chop higher this morning, the deeper it can get into this drop, the more it begins to dissipate our bearish short-term bias here because of what happened on Friday. So, again, we are in information gathering mode, but we do have a short-term top here and a big red bar. And the factory work is, as I've explained, how far can this get into the red bar? If it can't get that far, maybe today sets up as a 1, 2, 3 continuation to the downside, and it just blasts lower tomorrow. Honestly, I don't know. I'm just, looking at the chart at what it is. This isn't an uptrend. You give the benefit of the doubt to the uptrend. This was a big red bearish candlestick. You got to respect it somewhat, since this trend here is a little bit mature, and we've got a red candle on the weekly, which didn't take out that prior high by very much. So again, we're waiting to see how this develops here. This is probably the most bullish, which kind of looks like bullish flag. So if that red bar could be ignored and it takes out this high, right, what I wrote in the advisory letter, if it takes out that high, press the accelerator on the long side, because that red bar got negated, ignored, and this isn't an uptrend, so we got to go with. Oil should be soaring, right? British tankers, oil tankers, being taken over. I guess it's not so serious. This came down hard. Maybe it can get a bounce going here, but not happening yet. Actually got a little breakout failure there. So this got messy. I don't know what that's going to do. Bonds are up here, recovering off of the low, held the swing low. It's in a sideways congestion within an uptrend on the weekly at prior resistance. So unless you are a day trader in this market, probably best to stand aside for now. And gold, why the hell is that green? It's probably based on this column, I guess. Anyway, theoretically, just based on the bullishness of the higher time frames, that red bar should get digest it and ignore it at some point. Just chop around and then eventually go higher. Intraday, we'll see if it can hold here and get a bit of a bounce going. Before I get off here, let me just show you what I was talking about with this transports and this head and shoulders. You can see the depth of the pullback here. So it's clear, you know, if you just look at the shoulder and the head and here, you know, where this started to go up and it failed over here, you know, keep an eye on the transports to see, you know, can they recover or they start going down, you know, breaking below last week's low. You know, maybe this actually plays out, but this is what I was talking about, the textbook type versus the, you know, this low being, you know, you could obviously lower than the prior. And the Russell, which I was kind of thinking, you know, I said on Friday, let's keep an eye on this to see if this little breakdown doesn't follow through and can rally. And that didn't happen, and it broke down. And you can see again over here, you know, a little sloppy, but you can see what I'm talking about right there. So, and red bar. So we'll keep an eye on the transports and the Russell and see which way they go. Gapping up a little bit here, 154.50. Really not a big deal in the context of that red bar. So not so sure, just because the markets are up here pre-market doesn't mean they're going to stay up. We'll see what happens after 5 minutes, 30 minutes, and we'll see how it all unfolds. All yours, Dan.
All right, good morning. I was just answering an email here. Good morning, everyone. Let's look at opens as always. Hasbro, pro gap up. All right, let's look at it. I don't see any volume, so I can't tell where it's gapping, Howard. In our weekly options trader, we had a very light week, but still successful. Only had one loss. Uber here is our only open, and we're in what we call intelligent hope mode. We're going to keep our stop. I'll actually, you know what? I'm gonna look into legging into an Iron Condor on this. If there, you know, I
Not
think
showing your screen, Dan.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I think I did look already to leg into a Condor on this Uber put spread, and there was just no juice. But we have our stop under 43. It's at 43.35 pre-market. So just, you know, we're holding our breath. We have a lot of positions in the swing trader, ABT. We're long stock. Campbell's Soup. Just triggered Friday over Thursday's high, but it's bullish multiple time frames. And if it can take out Friday's high, you can add to it. And I did the chart of the week, which I'm going to send out here mid-morning. It was on multiple time frame alignment and why that's so important. And I went through a bunch of examples. And this actually was an agreement. Right now, it's a little questionable, you know, breakout failure. But this was a breakout daily. It was a buy setup, nice green bar, weekly. And look at this beautiful reverse head and shoulders on the monthly. So it's a good one. It's a little over 10 minutes, but I think you'll enjoy it. FDC is another one. I think I put that one in. I spoke about it. That was a breakout, daily, weekly, monthly. FNF, same. That's beautiful. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4 now. You can add over, you know what, I think even over Friday's high is fine. You don't have to wait till Thursday. That's a great looking chart. Oh, Fitch, we have a put spread. I tighten the stop. Gold, we have a put spread. HFC, we're long stock. Kilo Lima, another gold stock, acting great. KTOS, looks fine. I mean, I think we bought that tiny breakout right there, and it went against us, but it held the stop. I moved the stop to Thursday's low, and if it can take out Friday's high, you can add to it. Looks good. NMRK, we are long stock in trail mode. Oscar Charlie, we have a bull call debit spread, and this one was an agreement also. Beautiful daily, weekly, monthly, and now it's a deep retracement. Now it ain't looking good, because then this will be a breakout failure, which is a topping tail on the weekly chart, and there's a price void below. So we'll just take our stop if it hits. Oxy, we entered on Friday. Nice bullish wide range bar here from this buy setup, bottoming pattern, retest on the weekly. PHM is also on probation. We bought Thursday, this bullish 1, 2, 3, and it's just been whipping around. Finally, TMHC. We bought the breakout. So that's it. Let's look at some gappers. I put STI in the video. This is, daily, weekly, monthly, all in alignment. Hasbro, I mentioned I can't tell the gap. ALB, this is not a gapper, but McGraw mentioned it to me. I like the breakout on Friday. I like the relative strength to the market. Look, it didn't sell off very much at all with the market tanking into the close. This was just a little bio I saw getting its head chopped off pre-market. CDOR, little penny stock toy, got no interest. Apple, I think Greg said got an upgrade, but there's no pattern yet. Intech, this is just I'm sure it has to be a bio. Look at this. $3 and you wake up and it's 56 cents. Give me 1 second. I think someone's knocking at my door. 1 second, sorry. All right, FedEx man. PHG looks good for Howard. It's an ADR. I don't like it, but it is a nice gap. I would like it better. I love the gaps that just gap over the resistance because then they're not as extended. So that would be, 44.90 and it's 45.61. HAL earnings moving 22.86. The gap's too big. ONB, I don't like the way it trades. I think that was earnings. Pets is earnings 15.50. That's a bearish gap. If that cannot stabilize, maybe 30-minute low. This is earnings, RPM 64.76. That's a bullish gap, but a little too big. So yeah, I would have liked it right here at 63.50 area. Well, let's keep an eye on it. BOH at earnings, nothing going on. CADE 1671. Why are so many of these not moving? Okay, there's one. Okay, there we go. Wow. That's a nasty gap. Look too big for me to trade. Calm, ugly gap, but to this prior low. And buyers are stepping up initially. That can turn into an ugly topping tail in 2 minutes. Glancing at our opens to see if there's anything in need of adjustment. And it doesn't look like it. Lulu was still a pending trade. I see that up. And remember, Greg mentioned the magical 50%. And that's right. That's the starter to see if that's going to get negated or not. I still like Lulu over Friday's high because then there's going to be a lot of patterns like this. And if they trigger, It's going to be a red bar ignored. Garbage pattern. BBY, McGraw asked me about that. Little buy setup. Little buy setup right there. It's relative strength, but it's at weekly resistance. McGraw asked me about this one, and I said I liked it. The entry was really on Friday, but that's quite the relative strength. Again, anything that closed like this with the market selling off is strong. I'd like it to go sideways just to prove it's going to hold. But I like the monthly. You got daily, weekly, monthly breakout. These are all in alignment again. I noticed Micron was a nice gapper today. Wow, look at this. All started with this pro gap. And I think we bought it that day. I think we either did a put spread or a directional, I forget. And then we sold on this gap up. I remember that trade. That's when semis got extended. LIIs and